Hello and welcome to the Green Canary. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about the election, which won't be a shock, but we're going to zoom right in on Kooyong, where it's almost climate versus economy. It's almost a microcosm of the whole election going on there. We are also going to talk about why the Pacific nations are not so happy with Australia. We're going to be talking about electric vehicles, which looks like they're going to be revving up pretty soon. We're going to be talking about the new boss of the Murray-Darling Basin, and one pretty important thing he did not mention the other day. Whole lot more. I'm Ant Sharwood. I'm here as ever with Elfie Scott. How on earth are you, Elfie Scott?
I am very well, thank you so much, and I am tired, but I'm pushing through, and I'm very excited for today's episode.
That is good. You do a lot. Elfie's writing a book, everybody, and it's nearly due, so please be nice to her.
So if I'm slowly falling out of my chair and looking really upset, that's what's happening right now. All right. Well, let's get into it. Let's jump into our first story of the week, shall we?
Let us talk about the election as we warned. And look, before we do, let's play a game. Let's just lighten things up here.
Okay.
I want to play election bingo. Now, election bingo is the game you play when you hear those phrases that we all hear during the election and you stamp your card and you go, yeah, I knew I was going to hear that. Let's quiz you, Elfie. Let's go with, every vote
counts?
Every vote counts. How often do we hear that?
wait. So I'm ending your sentences here. I'm ending your phrase.
You
okay.
are.
Right,
I am in the fight of my
career,
political life.
Oh,
close.
All right, close.
We hear a lot in election campaigns, but not so much the rest of the time, about the quiet
Australians.
The quiet Australians.
Yes.
Maybe we don't hear about them much because they're so quiet. Anyway, look, we could go on, but you all know these phrases. It's too close to call. ... The reason I mention this is Josh Frydenberg trotted out every single one of them on the weekend. I could read the transcript of his launch, at his campaign launch in Kooyong, and it basically sounded like election bingo was happening. But look, the Federal Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, as you would imagine from a treasurer, and the Liberals in this campaign, they've very, very clearly planted their flag on the economy. It was all economy. It was fear of a hung parliament and that a vote for an independent. It was really a vote for Labor. It was fear that then meant, instilling fear in people, that then meant a vote for higher taxes, a weaker economy and weaker national security. I'm quoting him there directly. Massive billboards are now across the electorate saying, keep Australia secure, keep Josh. Actually,
I don't love keep Josh as a catchphrase, I've got to say. I feel like it's a bit lazy.
It is, but I think that the word secure is quite clever there because it refers both to national security and a secure economy.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that is the state of Kooyong from the Josh Frydenberg perspective. But on the other side, there's a whole lot going on with the challenge of the independent, one of the teal independents, one of the quite climatey independents, Dr. Monique Ryan, isn't there?
Yeah. So the reason we want to talk about Kooyong is because it is turning into a really key battleground to keep an eye on. We do have Josh Frydenberg there, who won by a margin of something like 5.7% last time around. So is he safe? It's difficult to know yet.
Tony Abbott held Warringah by 12%.
Oh, there you go.
So 5% on that measure is not safe.
Right, okay. But he is going up against somebody who is gaining a lot of traction. That is Dr. Monique Ryan. We like to call her doctor because she is the director of neurology at the Royal Children's Hospital. And she's an independent being backed by Climate 200. So she believes very ardently in fighting for climate change, and as a Climate 200 candidate, she's also speaking a lot about corruption and improving government integrity. And I think, I've looked at the policies of the Climate 200 independents, and they obviously don't have homogenous climate policy. They're all backed by this same treasure chest. What's it called? A war chest.
Yeah.
A war chest of cash.
That was the sound of me stamping my card.
I know.
Yeah,
sorry. I was looking for it as well. I never have them in my head. Amongst those independents, she does seem to have an even more slightly progressive, stance on climate. She wants to see emissions reduced by 60% by 2030. And that is actually in line with Zali Steggall's climate change bill. So, I think everybody should be keeping an eye on Kooyong and what happens. But you had an interesting point about Josh Frydenberg in general before, and we were talking about his palatability.
Well, I think he is quite
if palatability is a word. Let's just assume.
He's a palatable. I think that's a good word. He's a palatable character. I mean, when Tony Abbott bit the onion, it's almost a phrase like jumping the shark, because he did kind of jump the shark, I think, in a lot of people's minds when he bit the onion. When he bit the onion, which I think was back in about 2015, I think a lot of people, he won an election after that, but I think from that point on, a lot of people started thinking him not quite as your everyday Australian, but as an unusual piece of fruit, And I don't think Josh Frydenberg has any of that at all. He seems quite likeable. He seems drink beer withable or have a coffee with kind of guy. Drink beer withable is my newest submission to the Macquarie Dictionary for Word of the Year. and I just feel that it's going to be tough for Dr. Ryan, popular and articulate though she is, to unseat someone of Frydenberg's likability and stature.
Yeah. No, I would absolutely agree with that. Although Frydenberg did put his foot in it over the weekend at his campaign launch when he took a swipe at Dr. Ryan's mother-in-law by saying that she was planning on voting Liberal. And, he's been rightly criticised for that. But yeah, I think it's just worth keeping an eye on that particular electorate in the next couple of weeks as we ramp up towards the goddamn federal election.
Oh, the goddamn election. And just one more thing on that seat. I mean, we did see a massive free kick. I mean, it was the free kick of all time given by Courier Mail, Herald Sun, Sunday Telegraph, all around the country. Frydenberg's campaign launch was the splash. It was the front page on the News Corp papers. So they're giving him every bit of help he can get. Right now, the bookies' odds aren't everything, but they have him a favourite, but only slightly. So we shall see whether climate in the inner city, as it did in Warringah, trumps the well-known incumbent.
Yeah, who knows if they're going to keep Josh after all. All right, now to our next story. We are going to talk about the Pacifica Climate Change pre-election forum that happened late last week in Western Sydney. So basically, this was a meeting of the Pacific Elders Voice Group, as well as several other stakeholders, and they were talking about Australia's relationship specifically with the Pacific nations. Specifically with the Pacific. I want to say that again 3 times. Basically to do with climate change and the fact that Australia's inaction on climate change is something that has led to the degradation of our relationship with certain Pacific nations. Do you want to talk about some interesting quotes that we got out of this? Because I think it's really fascinating.
Well, look, the reason we are covering what was ostensibly a low-key, not very well covered by the media, meeting at Penrith Panthers Footy Club in Western Sydney is because I think one of the quotes of the year came out of it from a Lidcombe Uniting Church minister, and please excuse my Pacifica pronunciation, but I'll do my best. I believe he was called Uilisoni Mafaufau, and he accused Australia's government of being missing in action on climate. The quote goes on and on and on, but the point is a very strong connection was drawn between China setting up a base in the Solomon Islands and, islands and Australia's climate inaction in the Pacific. I mean, as you know, we have a terrible history. We even belittled the Pacific, didn't we? Wasn't it Dutton?
Yeah, back in 2015, wasn't it? When they were in Port Moresby, it was Abbott, Dutton and Morrison, and they laughed about a joke that Dutton made about water lapping at their doors due to sea level rise. Yeah. So it's not like we've always had the most empathetic outlook on the Pacific neighbours that we should absolutely be respecting and working with. And, I think it's worth noting that at this particular meeting, Mafaufau said that he'd spoken to the LNP and asked them to join, but they were a complete no-show. The only person who turned up was Chris Bowen, only politician, but no members of the government were there. So it is incredibly disappointing, and I think a very sort of profound demonstration of how little the government is paying attention to these sort of issues.
And that is why Mafaufau said that that is why the island nations are looking elsewhere, are looking beyond Australia, not just for climate solutions, but for security solutions.
Yeah. Well, climate change is security, isn't it?
It is. And if we're not going to be good diplomats in our region, then people are going to look for other ones. So climate is it's so much more than warming, isn't it, Elfie? That's what this is an example about. It's a food issue. It's a stability. It's a regional stability issue. It'll be a refugee issue. It'll be 100 different issues. Got to be taken seriously.
I think that's such a fantastic point, Ant. And now we would like to talk again about electric vehicles like we do every other week. I don't know why we're so obsessed with them, but can you please talk to me about Labor's plan?
Well, they're going to have one. They have a plan. They have a plan. I'm very excited. Look, the coalition has a plan as well. They have the Future Fund. What's it called? The Future Fuels Fund. I think they allocated late last year $250 million towards, investment in this sort of stuff. Labor had its policy launch federally in Perth yesterday. It more or less doubled the Future Fuels Fund. And part of that is the Driving the Nation Fund. Under that fund, there's going to be an EV charger pretty much everywhere across the country. So Labor is saying we are going to put EV chargers out there, go and drive from Broome to Broken Hill and Bega and some other Burnie in Tasmania and just keep the...
I don't know if you could make it to Tasmania just in a car unless you get the ferry.
Put it on the ferry. Yeah. Say some more B towns. Birdsville. I'm trying to say one in every state. Murray Bridge in South Australia. That's half a B town. So look, this is what Labor is doing. It is taking electric vehicles seriously. We have come in 3 years a long way from they're going to take your utes and your weekends. They are actually putting this out there. And what do you think?
I mean, I think it's fantastic. And I also haven't told you this yet, Ant, but I am thinking about buying a hybrid vehicle for the first time.
Yep.
It's very scary. But I mean, things like that, things like this plan give me a little bit more security in that decision as well. And it does make me feel a little bit more confident about that idea.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And there are already, as we've discussed, we discuss this every couple of weeks, there are state incentives. We spoke earlier this year about the ACT government putting all sorts of financial incentives to EV uptake. But, look, we know they're more expensive. We hope they'll be cheaper in the future, the cars themselves. But you could say, look, I'll sell you this 50k car for 35k. You can have a big subsidy. I'm still not interested until I know I can drive to the snow where I go, or Melbourne or somewhere, and be confident of there being charging points.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a completely fair idea. And you know what? Something that Labor did say when they were announcing this was that, people who live in metropolitan areas, they can be fairly confident in their lifestyle if they have an electric vehicle. It's completely sweet for them. But, you and I have looked at a Google map of EV charging stations before. And once you get up to the Central Coast and once you get down to the South Coast, they do peter out very quickly.
You are about Dunsky there. All right, well, let's talk about the South Coast or areas nearby as we transition into mulch, our little bits at the end of the week. And there's been a bit of an advancement, hasn't there, Elfie, on the Lend-Lease development in the south of Sydney. They are building 5,000 homes near Campbelltown. We were worried about that from a koala's perspective. Should we still be worried?
Apparently, yes. So there was a fantastic article in the SMH last week talking about this Lend-Lease development and how it seems to have changed over time. So, the development was first supposed to be a low density development, but that's now changed to a medium density development with a commercial zone. And there is also concern that the plans that Lend-Lease included which had things like koala underpasses and corridors, may not actually be happening along with that development. So it's fairly worrying, especially when you consider that they're healthy koalas and there's only 500 of them. We got to look after them. Honestly, we talk about koalas every other week as well. And basically what it comes down to is, yes, you can pour as much money into this as humanly possible, but it's never going to do much unless you're actually protecting their habitat.
Protect habitat. So this Lend-Lease thing's going to happen. Not much we can do about that. Let's just hope it happens in the right way. Meanwhile, just a quick other story in the ABC related to this. They found koalas in the area they didn't know they had them in the Heathcote National Park, which is very close to Campbelltown. I must say, I went for a bushwalk about 10 days ago in the Heathcote National Park on one of the public holiday Mondays. And so it can't be 10 days ago because it's 7 days from a Monday, it being Monday. But recently, all I saw was leeches. Oh, my God. Can you cope with leeches?
Yeah, they're fine. I can live with them.
You're stronger than me. I squeal. like an absolute child when I was covered in leeches. I didn't enjoy it at all. I do enjoy koala zone. It's good they found some down there. Let's keep as many as we can. What else is going on, Elfie?
Right. Okay, let's talk about the Murray-Darling Basin, shall we? Because there has been interesting news this week about the new chief executive who has just been appointed. He's come in and he has sent out an all-staff memo that outlines his new approach to the role. And unfortunately, staff are reporting that that memo completely failed to mention the environment, which seems slightly strange for somebody who's in charge of water, which sits in an environment.
Someone who's in charge of the biggest drainage basin in Australia. And, you know, the whole reason the Murray-Darling Basin Authority was set up was not to protect the rights of farmers. It was to go, hey, well, yeah, sure, we need to do that, but we need to manage the water in a sustainable way. It's ecosystems. We need to consult with the original landholders, i.e. the Indigenous people of Australia. You know, this was just a very businessy first memo to the company from Andrew McConville, the new chief executive of the Murray-Darling Basin Authority, who used to be a lobbyist for the petrol industry. So good on you, Andrew. I'm sure you're a terrific bloke. Just think a bit more about the environment, mate, and we'll all get along fine.
Sure. And okay, to wrap up today, I am going to bring you a weird story because I thought that we needed just like a weird science story in the mix here. Okay. Apparently, there are these two teams of astronomers who are planning to send out messages to space to try and communicate with any intelligent life forms who may be out there listening. And I read this really fantastic article by a man called Chris Impey, I believe, from the University of Arizona. And he was talking about, you know, attempts to speak to intelligent life forms out in the universe. And he said there are two options, basically. You know, you either go searching for them, which is what we've done with probes in the past, to go and have a look and see what's out there, or you send a message from Earth. And he compared it to basically like burning a message in a forest to try and get somebody to come and rescue you. So
what works? What's the best method?
I don't know, because there aren't aliens who have spoken to us yet, I hope.
Well, I'm glad someone's looking for intelligent life out there because, look, covering this election, we ain't seen too much of it down here.
And look, people are very critical of this because we don't know. And, you know, we don't know what's out there. Even Stephen Hawking said, don't do it. Like, just stop sending messages. We don't want aliens to know we're here. Yeah,
no, I feel like I was paraphrasing the Monty Python song, actually. Pray that there's intelligent life somewhere up in space.
Because there's bugger all down here on Earth.
There it is.
Yep. All right. Well, that is all we have time for today. Thank you so much for listening, as always. And before we head off, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're recording, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We'd like to pay our respect to elders past and present, as well as extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today.
Very beautifully said, as ever, Elfie, and I'd just like to acknowledge that I didn't sing those lyrics earlier. I spoke them, therefore
we'd probably get copyrighted.
There's that, but I saved everyone's eardrums. That's the most important part. And look, just quickly, say hello to us on Twitter. A lot of you did last week. It was great. We are at Green Canary Pod. We're out there on Insta. At Green Canary Media. You can find us there. And please subscribe to our newsletter. I think I might have threatened some of you, and that seemed to work last week.
Didn't you?
But yeah. I'll go the polite method. I'll go, look, if you want the best of the week's green news delivered into your inbox by a professional writer, brackets me, who tries not to be boring, but comprehensive at the same time, please email hello@thegreencanary.co. You will join many, many hundreds of other people. We're about to hit 1,000, which is good because I have a target of 1,000 very soon coming up, but we're going to hit it.
Well done.
And we'll go beyond that soon as well. So hello@thegreencanary.co for your newsletter. Thank you and bye.
Bye.